Bloody Miners, what a day to be a New South Welshman. Go the Mighty Blues. First time in 19 years that New South Wales have won a decider at Suncorp Stadium. I was throwing children around, sinking dingoes, and what a bloody night. Getting death threats on Twitter from Queenslanders.
Go the Blues.
Go Australia.
You can all get fucked. Anyone that wants me to die.
Awesome, mate. I'm happy for you. It's good to see you come in after a State of Origin kind of game and with a smile on your face, because ever since I've known you, you've been just down in the dumps about it.
Yeah. Positive attitude. Not as pretty much polar opposite to bloody the market's attitude towards Fortescue at the moment. Geez, there's a bit going on there, which is, I guess, a lack of trust, but then that's polar opposite to the trust in Axis mining technology. That, like, the trusted business of core orientation and gyros and bloody drill hole instrumentation.
Kind of like the Blues last night, mate, that just gets the job done.
I feel that maybe Axis could go in and save Fortescue. So I don't know if they're using their gear, but whether that's a leading indicator to a lack of trust. Good work, Axis. Free trial if you say money of mine. What a deal, mate. We've got Fortescue. We've also got Genesis's quarterly that come out today. Evo's big evolution. Jesus Christ, they've made some cash. I can't believe it.
I got to say, Matty, I think
out of cow. Jesus.
I think a lot more of the brain power went into Fortescue and Genesis today. I think Evo's is a bit of an afterthought here, but good to see them make a bit of cash. And to be honest, we were expecting it, weren't we, with copper and gold where they were the last quarter, hey?
Ripping and a tear. And I think, what's at the end? Something at the end.
Yeah, mate, I'm doing a bit of a spiel on the big kind of like financing deals I've seen out of the North American listed companies over the last 3 days. There's some big numbers. There's a theme amongst them. I think it's worth talking about.
Very good. Take it away on Fortescue. And Fortescue or Fortescue? Fortescue, sorry. Anyway, we'll get to that. There's a bit happening in Twiggy's forest, you'd say.
There sure is, mate. 700 jobs are being cut. That's the headline. So first and foremost, thoughts go out with those people.
Oh, it's bloody God. And that's 700 there, and then all the, was it 4,500 potentially with Nickel West? Like, fucking hell, that's a lot of pain for a lot of people. So we're thinking of yous all there. I know we come in with a bit of energy, but I do not ever want to underappreciate how tough it is for these workers. So
absolutely, Matty. I think that comes first and foremost, and we'll chat about that a bit more later on, just to kind of hit the high notes on what's going on at Fortescue. So, the job cuts, like we've just said, the revolving door at the executive level and a bit below at the sort of senior management level continues. They've got a new permanent CFO, COO, and COSEC. The marketing director and another energy exec have both left in the past couple weeks or so. They're implementing this big restructuring. That's the headline. That's why the jobs have been removed. It's called One Fortescue. They're bringing together the metals and the energy divisions. So names people might have heard of, like Fortescue Future Industries, that was sort of wrapped in last year. Essentially, they're just simplifying things. The quarterly hasn't actually come out yet, so this is a bit of a guide to sort of prep people into it. That'll come out on July 25th, and then the annual results to come out in August. You've obviously got a lot of people ripping in. I think just about every single media organisation I'd seen in Australia today, at least commenting, if not ripping into the company and into Twiggy. A few words that he and the company have said are coming back to bite them today. And I think Twiggy he's in a bit of an unenviable position as a WA billionaire who doesn't actually have an economic interest in one of the local media stations, unlike your Stokeses, your Ginas, or your Ellisons. You can see this headline here, Forest Dump. That's from the Nightly. That's obviously a company he doesn't have an interest in, who are more than happy to comment on his doings and, not the doings of Hancock or BCI or other companies.
So pretty much the three that you just mentioned have the economic interest in the Nightly.
I don't think they've underwritten the advertising for its launch, but they don't experience the upside of its profitability. But yeah, it basically gives them immunity from bloody being lambasted.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. So I mean, not helping the cause. You got the PR team and the IR team at Fortescue who've had a pretty torrid past couple of weeks. Firstly, a week or two ago, they put up this sort of billboard headline, Fortescue Zero does whatever that means, connecting green hydrogen APAC for a conference, and they've spelt their own company name wrong. So that's a bit of a shocker.
Yeah.
And then
mate, did you see the one in the announcement yesterday? It was like the last paragraph at the bottom. It said the board was compromising nearly 50% women. I think they meant comprising of, but yeah,
maybe they meant compromising based on the amount of women that are leaving there.
Might not be untrue.
Matty, a bit of a Freudian slip there, Matty. That's a bit naughty. So, all kind of clangers aside, fellas, we should chat about the business itself. To start with, the market reaction has been pretty neutral, on par with what their peers in Rio and BHP have done today. That is pretty much flat. And that's kind of interesting in and of itself to kind of gauge what the market thinks of it. Albeit the announcement was pretty brief. There weren't a lot of numbers to speak about. But I think this is a pretty significant change in direction for, one of Australia's biggest companies. And despite there not being too much said in the announcement, there were bits that we could sort of glean that was sprinkled in throughout various media sources. Yeah,
what do you think of the new direction here? And I mean, like FFI has kind of been a bit of a, it's like the brokers that cover it don't attribute value to FFI. They actually, allocate negative NAV in most instances to that part of the business. So, but I mean, like now that it's kind of rolling into the whole thing, like what do you think of this, new/old direction in some ways?
Mate, that's a fascinating point. So first and foremost, the chairman's probably got a bit too much pride to admit that it's kind of all over on the hydrogen front. That's why they use these terms like deprioritize. So you can kind of call it what you will.
So they're just they're just bringing it in to hide it in the business.
Yeah, I mean, here's what we know, right? They've got the metals and energy groups coming together. The jobs trimmed, which equates to sort of 5% of the workforce. They're slowing the push into hydrogen. They've got 3 projects that they've already made final investment decision on. They're still going ahead. They've got 2 under consideration. They're going to remain under consideration. So a few other bits have kind of fallen by the wayside there. There's no info on what this actually means for CapEx, and perhaps that's a reason why there's a bit of a muted response. Overall, I think the company is more attractive. This kind of goes to what you said there, Trav. A lot of people ascribing, not much or kind of negative value because they don't know what the kind of economic returns were going to be on any of these sorts of projects. So a lot of the street out there had underweight or, hold recommendations on Fortescue. And this was one of the sort of core reasons why, back in the day, it's just a stock you hold for leverage to iron ore and leverage to China, to steel, to China property, to all these sorts of things, economic growth around the world. Now, the media for quite a while now has really honed in on this part of the business, what was FFI, what is essentially the green hydrogen and whatnot part of the business. So that's one thing. We'll put a pin in that for a moment. To wrap numbers around what we're talking about here, they guided to $500 million CapEx and $700 million OPEX for this financial year. Now, a year or so ago or a couple years ago, what they'd said was that 10% of the group's profits would go to funding FFI. Now, like I said, that's since been wrapped into Fortescue Metals, but you can kind of use that as a bit of a proxy for what they were flowing into it. To take a step back, those 3 projects that I said are still going ahead would cost sort of circa US $850 million. We're talking about a company in FY23 that had US $10 billion in EBITDA. And that is, that went downstream to $5.5 billion in net profit. This year, it's expected to be even better. The year's obviously done, but we haven't seen the full financials yet. The kind of consensus is in and around US $11 billion in EBITDA. And if you just kind of use last year's net profit margins, we're talking about kind of $6 billion in net profit. So it's a slice of it going. And then, of course, if you're going to do like a DCF kind of calc, a net asset value calc, like you kind of mentioned, Trav, you're talking about multiple years in the future, what the projects are kind of generate. That's why the core iron ore operations are 90% of the overall business. And that doesn't really even include Iron Bridge yet. That's kind of its own subset. So FMG missing guidance this year, which they kind of flagged to do for the core operations, is kind of much more important, in my opinion. There is one question that's kind of unanswered, and that's to the flows of capital. We kind of joke about it, but it is kind of serious at the big end of town. If a passive like a Norgis, I haven't seen them on the register here, but if they kind of pull out of a company like this because they don't like the ESG policies of the companies like they've sort of done with Rio Tinto and whatnot in the past, that could lead to a material effect. But if you do look at the top 20 at Fortescue, I mean, you go beyond the like Forest family, you go to the Chinese strategic holders who've been there for ages. You look at other sort like the Malaysian family, Emicron, that have held stock since pre 2010. You do have to go a bit of a way down to actually get to significant shareholders that would actually look at these sorts of things. In my opinion, I don't think anyone above a few $1 billion in a holding here would actually look at those sorts of things kind of too seriously. So I think we can kind of put a pin in the business performance side of things for now. We'll get into that when the quarterly comes out and the full year results come out. Just to say, like you said last week, Trav, there are a couple questions around Iron Bridge, water challenges there, Gabon, and everything that's happened in country, with the caveat that only makes up less than 10% of the NAV of the business here.
That'd be the 10% would be what Iron Bridge, but the Gabon would be, I don't think it's like sub 1%. And yeah, but both have big kind of question marks on going into this earnings season for sure. What was there anything else that kind of stood out to you, JD?
Mate, there are a few things, right? So one of the questions I kind of want to start by posing to you is, what do you think about like reading into this too much and kind of thinking like the frame of thought I had around this is looking at what companies do rather than what they kind of say with the lens of iron ore prices. So we know Samandu just got the go ahead. We've got West African production, a substantial amount of production to come online. Are we reading into it too much to say that this company might have a bearish outlook on iron ore? What do you guys reckon?
Ooh. Where are they going to fill the void if they do?
I don't know. They're basically a pure play iron ore company, and it's not like FFI's like earnings were like anywhere in the next decade going to rival iron ore earnings. So I don't really, I don't think so. I just think, I think it's just so fucking hard to predict iron ore price, and it proves to be so much more resilient than people ever really think.
Yeah, I think you've nailed it there.
Yeah, do you think like obviously the cost cutting and bringing this bloody FFI back in is like an indication that his whole green hydrogen bloody vision was making a lot of people disgruntled and hence the high turnover, and he needs to re-simplify the business to retain executives because they're bloody flying out the door flat out. So
it's a good question, Matty. Even with this, I'm not sure the style of the company, the sort of the culture, if you want to call it that, changes an awful lot. Like, is management? I mean, by management, I mean is the chairman Twiggy going to really change? I don't know. I think he's kind of admitting defeat on the hydrogen point, not really going out and doing this to address the employment at the senior exec level. That'd be my opinion. I don't think he is the type of character that would do something like that just to appease a few people.
Who knows?
What do you think?
Who knows? Be good to get inside his head. Should be like an amusement park.
Careful what you wish for, mate. I think it leads to a broader question, beyond the exec level though, Matty, on labour costs, on employment. So obviously we spoke about the jobs coming off. You mentioned BHP, Minres, Yilgarn, that was 800 odd people, Alcoa, Kwinana, another 1,000 odd people, not to mention all the sort of lithium projects and whatnot around. Matty, I know you've said in the past that, labour costs, they go upwards and they don't tend to come down. But yeah, I do think that a point in time comes when it's demand and supply, and there's just simply much more supply out there, much more people sort of willing to work and perhaps work for a slightly lower salary than they were because they just want a job. Have you sort of changed your thinking on that at all?
Oh, I just think it takes a long time for it to really take effect on the monetary value. But 5,000 people just from two companies being, I know a lot of the BHP people will either some might get redundancies, have time off, some will get repositioned within the company. But like say 4,000 to 5,000 people getting re-injected into the market, it will eventually have to take effect that they'll likely companies won't have to use labour hire and contractors and stuff like that as much. They'll be like, right, there's a lot of people available for full-time employment that we can probably offer a cheaper rate because they're in, as you said, they're in surplus now. So I'm like, if it's going to actually start coming down, now will be the time. But how long that takes and whether what the stats and data on that, I'm not sure. But it's definitely back in the employer's court now. So it has to be. But because there's but then it's like they've been re-injected, nickel's gone to shit. But then we're like, are we about to see a turnaround in gold? Like gold price is tearing. We're seeing a bit of activity in the juniors, like how much that's going to start filling a void. So whether that all balances out, not sure. Getting real macro here.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's another couple points of debate I think we should chat about. So one that was bandied about in a few of the publications was a reputational damage, whether that be to Twiggy or to the company itself. And I've kind of flip-flapped on my opinion on this. To start with, Andrew Forrest going and calling other highly successful and influential people around the world Muppets, at conferences that lots of people watch.
Elon Musk, is that the one?
Yeah, that was the one, and a few other people were sort of put into that category because I think the context was that they weren't believers that hydrogen would. Yeah, so I think that is absolutely reputationally damaging to Mr. Forrest himself.
God, I'd hate to see what our reputation's like then, especially yours, Trav.
Mate, shut up, you muppet.
Don't ask the questions you don't want the answers to, Matty. So then the broader point is reputationally damaging to FMG and their pursuit of green hydrogen. And I mean, since day one, they have been super outspoken, at least at an exec level. They've been super outspoken about what they want to do and where they want to get to. And the way they've kind of gone about that is working backwards. They say, this is what we want to do. This is where we want to be, and just figure it out. And that's, like Twiggy's always been that way. He's been the big picture visionary type of person. And, perhaps it was all wrong from the beginning doing it with hydrogen. I don't think, it's reputationally damaging in and of itself just to fail in a business venture. That's kind of what like capitalism's all about. And I'm a huge backer of that. But maybe the working backwards strategy, which is like what a lot of seriously big companies do, like Jeff Bezos and stuff are famed for going about things that way and just seeing what people want. But I don't know. It's a kind of question that is very subjective in its answer. There is one other aspect that I think is super reputationally damaging, and that is, the stalking of family members of people that have left or competitors' businesses or whatever. And that's sort of coincided in timing, and I think they've handled that very ordinarily. I think throwing the legal counsel or the chief general counsel of the business under the bus and not at an exec level just taking charge for what goes on in your company isn't the right way to go about things. That's just my personal opinion. Again, I think people will have different points on how they think leaders should manage a company. But have you gents got any thoughts on reputationally damaging and this whole sort of saga of Fortescue?
In regards to that, the private investigators and everything, yes, I don't agree with it, but I do not believe that they would be the only company that's done anything like that. And I feel that he is got the fucking media spotlight on him, and they are looking for everything on him because he's feeding the papers at the moment, and they will keep finding stuff. But he hasn't got the ties to give them anything else. But I don't think that's the first time that something like that's ever happened before. Put it that way with these high, powerful people.
Regardless of if it's the first time, it's an appalling thing to do to
a
human being.
Exactly. But
I'd hate it if anyone ever did that to me.
Yeah. They're probably doing it to us now. We don't even know.
I just think the people at the top should take charge for what happens in their shop. That is my opinion. Whether people down you did it, it is your organization.
Jady, you came around to my bloody my thinking on the on the reputational side. On
the business front, or
yes, the business front. I mean, I read what you'd written up before and taken a disagreed with you, but what you said there, I kind of do agree with you. I mean,
I'd backspace my writing a few times while I was tip-tapping between what I'm actually thinking, but I'm keen to hear your thoughts on the green hydrogen aspect of it.
Yeah, I mean, Twiggy's vision was bold. The issue I took was he predetermined the solution before understanding the economics first. Did FFI ever have a rope to explore widely all forms of alternative energy? I mean, yes, Twiggy's got Squadron, and Squadron's got his renewables plans and all that. But did the scope of FFI ever really look at energy from a first principles perspective? Right, first principles, fundamentals. You're trying to optimize output given your resource constraints that you've got in the world and the costs that they have. That's fucking first principles, right?
That's the right question to ask.
Or were they told the answer and then had to back solve, like you said? I.e., the answer is green hydrogen because I said it. Now let's make it work. Because one approach is real science and the other approach is fantasy land. And I get the impression that FFI has been back solving the entire time, and this is just an inevitable retreatment when you go about solving a hard problem with the solution determined by the most influential person in the room rather than by science. And don't get me wrong, it's that same boldness, tenacity and visionary thinking that created Fortescue in the first place. And it was literally an idea and a shell company, and now look at it. And I don't want to take anything away from the tremendous economic prosperity that has been unlocked as a result of that, right? But I don't think it was the way to go about things this time around when it comes to energy. Take a look at this screenshot from Fortescue's website under the green energy section. There's a pretty obvious notable emission from this list. You got green hydrogen, green ammonia, solar power, wind power, geothermal power, hydropower. What's missing, gents?
Let me have a guess. Nuclear.
The most dense one.
The one with the highest energy return on investment of them all and zero carbon emissions.
Yeah, and I believe this is all, and I remember fucking back in the Life of Mine days interviewing the mining minister for WA, and he says, hydrogen is the answer. And because Australia is an anti-nuclear country, this state and other states are anti-uranium mining and everything, so it's goes exactly to your point. They were given, hydrogen is the future. Right, I'm building a hydrogen business then. And they've been back solving ever since. And I think it's very political, this whole thing.
It was the right strategy when Twiggy said, we're going to unlock the Pilbara by building a port and rail and everything like that. And he didn't even have the iron ore to start with, but he back solved, and that was the right strategy then. It absolutely wasn't the right strategy here.
No. Yeah, I think that's well said. And Matty, your points on what we do as a country, that's a perfect segue into one of my last couple comments on this. What does Australia do next? The budget came out a month or two ago, and they'd carved out $6.7 billion for the hydrogen production tax incentive sort of scheme. Another $4 billion was committed for the Hydrogen Head Start program. FMG have been the biggest and most vocal proponents of hydrogen in Australia. So, that one leaves the whole hydrogen in Australia concept on kind of shaky foundations in my opinion. And the last point to mention, in reading up and getting onto FMG, up to speed with everything that's kind of gone on, I listened to the call they did, the Q&A in February of this year, so for the first half year of the financial results. And I want to play a snippet from the CEO of the energy part, so now the co-CEO of the business, Mark Hutchinson.
Second question is on electrification. I was just kind of curious to see in the Rio Tinto presentation yesterday and the end of results, they didn't expect any sort of electrification at their mines to occur in any sort of scale beyond before 2030. Yet I understand that you guys are still committed to not burning fossil fuels at all by that date. So who's right and who's wrong?
Well, we are totally right. We're going to make sure we are real zero by 2030, and we're on track to do that.
Complete certainty that the business won't run on fossil fuels by 2030. I admire
not far away.
It is super soon. I admire the ambition and I admire the goal, but I find the confidence just shocking. And it reminds me of a Howard Marks memo that I listened literally just this morning to, and it's called The Fallacy of Certainty. And it's well worth a listen. That sort of confidence just raises alarm bells in me. But you can listen to that podcast and the call if you're interested. I thought it was just a good taste for the mindset within the business.
I wonder how much of Mr. Forrest and Mrs. Forrest's dividend will want to be sacrificed for potential production delays for not using fossil fuels to power everything, because transitions like that impact production. And it would not, that is a massive, massive business to commit to that much of a transition out of fossil fuels. Huge. So
huge.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
All of these like targets 2030. 2030 just gets pushed out to 2040. 2040 gets pushed out to 2050. Yeah. You know, but it's you wait for someone else to do it first, and then everyone says it all at once.
Yeah. Oh, look, this whole hydrogen thematic's only going to work. You mentioned water bloody problems at Iron Bridge. Like, it's only going to work if they find a shitload of water to supply it. So it's pretty much another future Australian industry hinging on WA water bores. Pretty much, again, solely responsible for getting it off the ground. That was, I guess, my conclusion of the whole thing. Gerard James is the only hope Fortescue have, I think.
He's doing God's work.
Yeah. Multi-rig campaigns. Monitoring bores, bore field setup, like just simply anything to do with fucking water, WA water bores. Like, you don't have water in your name if you don't do everything to do with freaking water. And, mate, even anything to do with drilling. They could use those drills. They can bloody drill for anything. You want a hole? You want a hole that gives you water? Just WA water bores. Fucking the pressure on this bloke. Thinking of the Fortescue shareholders and the pressure on Gerard James, it's bloody phenomenal.
He just deals with it.
Yeah.
Just gets the job done.
Give him a ring. His number's in the show notes.
I might call him after this.
Yeah. Bloody.
Go Gerard James.
Go Gerard James. Oh, did you see, that wasn't a lack of energy, but it's like I started feeling the pressure that James has. Like, it was weighing on me, so I can't believe what it's doing to him. Boys, Genesis, the gold growth story.
Run us through it, Matty.
Oh.
What's going on here? How's their quarterly? How'd the full year look?
I'm going to try and talk about this without mentioning the MD. You know, some companies the MD the name gets mentioned more than the company.
Good luck to you.
I'm not doing it. They met guidance. Things are looking like they're moving forward pretty well, I think, from first pass in good old Leonora and potentially Laverton soon. So 36,000 ounces for the quarter. Sustaining capital remained a bit high, but looks like there's a bit of money going into the Gwalia mill for the long term. So work on like leach tanks, cyanide tanks, bit of concrete. But the pleasing thing to see is the increase in mill throughput and also the surface stockpile inventory, because, you know, historically the whole thing is filling the Gwalia mill. So they're pretty bloody close now to that 1.4 million tonne per annum run rate, with the Admiral Pit declared commercial production 1st of May. Ore coming out of Gwalia from the deeps, that lifted it back up to around 180,000 tonnes. So that's the bloody hard stuff to get out from 1,800 metres deep. So, and surface stockpiles grew to about 314,000 tonnes, so pretty much doubled in the quarter. So albeit it's 1.1 gram dirt, but most of that you would assume is the Admiral stuff building up the stockpile. But again, really handy going forward towards maintaining that 1.4 million tonne throughput rate. So sitting with $173 in the bank and no debt. So growth capital of $32 for the quarter. So went backwards 7.5 in cash, but no debt in place there. And they've indicated, I think, in that Aspire 400, they're looking to establish a corporate debt facility. So look, there's definitely a plan in place to grow organically, incrementally, with operational cash flows, the cash they've got, plus maybe a bit of debt. Ulysses looking to start stoping by the end of this year, start of next year. So first development ore from that will be arriving in the September quarter. So that's obviously going to really guarantee that throughput rate at the Gwalia mill and lift the grade once they start getting the underground stuff from there. So they'll be able to start smashing it through. So, and yeah, good old Tower Hill, always that's the kicker, FY28. But a lot of ounces actually being attributed to the restart of the Laverton mill. So that looks like they might be bringing that forward. They said hub open pit mining schedule for September quarter. A lot of options out that way with maybe going back into Mount Morgan's, maybe some M&A out that way with the likes of Magnetic or something. They didn't say that.
No, but that's a talking point.
That's an easy set.
That's high grade.
Yeah, it's a sensible one.
15 kilometres away. And yeah.
I think they're about, 280, 300 mil market cap, I think.
It's a 300 mil, north of $300 million market cap, but there's, bloody real ounces there at high grade that, can either go to Mount Morgan's or they can go to Goldfields, 50% kind of utilised mill there too.
Granny Smith one.
Yeah, so and with Goldfields kind of moving on bloody Karora, like we know that happened. So they're not going to, it's not like Goldfields are this slow behemoth that aren't going to do a deal in WA anymore. They might actually get their shit together and do a deal. So if like that, but that you talk about the catalyst being Tower Hill, I think the catalyst can also be getting higher grade through Mount Morgan's for them. Yep. That can really materially lift their production profile. Yeah,
very much so. And the original plan was for Tower Hill to go to Laverton, the dirt, but it sounds like that's changing. So because Tower Hill's bloody 1.1 k's away from Gwalia. It's right bloody there. Because there was talk of, I don't know if they announced it, I saw it in the Argonaut note, talk of expanding the Gwalia mill to 4 million tonne per annum, which would take the Tower Hill dirt instead of sending it all the way to Laverton. But I personally cannot see it happening. I might have, again, egg on my face. They've got an organic pipeline that they could stick to if they want. But I just think that Genesis Red 5 tie-up has to definitely happen. So probably not sooner rather than later, maybe coincide before Tower Hill. But yeah, I think it's just a bit complicated, but because you're not sure if Red 5 have to divest all the Silver Lake assets, effectively, Mount Munga, Deflector, Rothsay, Sugar Zone, if they have to divest that to make it happen, or if it'll be similar to the Genesis St. Barb's deal where it might be a asset sale of King of the Hills to get that into Genesis. Because those non-Leonora assets, or the Silver Lake ones, I think they belong in the hands of a Black Cat or someone like that can, especially considering all the management connections between Silver Lake and Black Cat, someone like that, to go have a crack at these operations, give them a bit of a rebirth, you'd say. So whether all that needs to happen first before Genesis and Red 5 merge, but instead of expanding the 1.4 million tonne Gwalia mill, why wouldn't you just take the 5.5 million tonne plant at King of the Hills, expand that to bloody take even more and make it an even lower cost mill? It's just the logical path for that Leonora region for that to tie up. But I've got my eyes peeled, as usual. I just think, especially with Genesis scrip at the moment, even though I think Red 5's 2.8 billion, Genesis is 2.4. So it's
yeah, you can get around that one. I mean, A, Genesis could acquire Magnetic and then they're the bigger company. And B, if you have a spin out of any other assets out of Red 5, then Genesis can still be the acquirer. Yeah, and that's it could be that could be the Phoenician. Phoenician could be all the Silver Lake assets.
Bring Phoenician back.
Do they rename themselves Hoover House then, or?
Oh, who knows? I'm sure they're still in the back pocket if needed. So, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think the pathway will be there? A lot of permutations it could take.
I think it does happen. I think the question is when. I don't know. I mean, the MD who shall not be named, like you say, Matty, hasn't been, adverse to growth by dilution and just having a bigger company and having a smaller, personal ownership in a bigger business down the track. Perhaps a slightly different route to what Bill has done with Develop.
Interesting you say that. With the, I think, I'm going to have to say his name. God. They'll love it. I think Ral has about fully diluted a gross value of about $100 in his shares. And I think Bill at the current Develop share price, fully diluted gross, is about 130. But Ral's got a bit less than 5% of Genesis. Bill's got, what's it? I think it ends up 23 or something like that. So very different ways to do it. And the whole journey of Develop going forward is based on not raising and maybe an asset sale to, protect that equity. Whereas, as you said, Ral's, raised a lot of money through bloody Aussie Super and everything in the initial deal and has a lot lower equity stake. It looks like going to grow a lot bigger. So, hey, who wins, who loses? Not sure.
It's all about TSR.
What do you reckon, Trev?
I've really come around to the idea that magnetic is a big catalyst for them. I don't know if it's a deal where they acquire the company. I don't know if it's you can just have a deal to get the feed, but I just can. I mean, 15 k's away and it's nearly 2 grams a ton. It's open pit, like it's their bread and butter. I think that's a really interesting proposition for them. And yeah, I'd be like so Mount Morgan's is restarting. I think they have some ounces scheduled to come out of that during FY25 at the back half.
Yeah.
Like what a catalyst if you can just transform the production profile out of that mill because you've got a sexy new ore body that can literally feed high grade through it.
Mm.
I mean, it's not a secret that it's been there. The consensus has been that getting a deal done with magnetic would be difficult.
I remember early days, Matty, doing a deep dive on this company, and it literally
it's like a bloody Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, it did $1,000 of volume a day. It was like the investor presentation hadn't been changed in 3 years. It's still the last 3 years. It said Jeffries was running an advisory strategic review for them the whole time, and I don't know if they still are or not. But now you look at it, investor pres is sexed up. They've got broker coverage launched. They've got debt advisors running a debt process to finance it. So they're clearly putting the pressure on both Goldfields, I reckon, and Genesis to do some sort of deal there, but also running that dual track stream of saying we'll finance it ourselves if we have to, and just to extract maximum value. Just because we're bloody WA people, it'd be cool to see that kind of land in the Genesis portfolio, but who knows where Goldfields comes into the mix or not. I don't know.
I think it's imagine if in friggin' 10 years time or 5 years time, you've got one organisation running the Murchison, and then you've got another organisation running this Leonora Laverton region, which could bloody happen. Because you got
it's far too logical, Matty.
Oh, I know. There's too many managers out of a job. Because whether bloody Orabanda's the other player there that in that region with I think their market cap's 800 million now.
Wow.
So
they're on a tear.
Their
46 cents or something.
Script is looking flash. So whether they start getting active in that region with some juniors as well, don't know. It's what a district, boys. What a district.
What a state.
Oh, mate. Yeah. Love it. It's either way, it's going to be shitloads of work for Silverstone. Any of these bloody deals or expansions or everything, bloody Kenny and the boys would just be licking their lips. I can just see them being you got the mining company of the Laverton Leonora region. You've got the turnkey solution provider of the region being Silverstone. Imagine the bloody power they'd be ripping in there. The OG power, mate. He can do Twiggy power. He can do diesel power. He can do whatever they bloody want.
Amazing.
Yeah,
he's a machine, Kenny.
Oh, mate, you didn't probably realise how much of a machine they are because we've just talked power, but Jesus Christ, the turnkey offerings, the water infrastructure projects, they will Kenny literally will get in the trenches with them.
I've seen photos of him in the trenches.
I've seen him in the trench just to make sure.
Mate, look on the screen right now.
Mate,
look at him.
I think that is Kenny. That is Kenny right there, mate. And
digging him.
Mate, and you know why they knew that trench had to go there?
No.
Silverstone Survey Division.
Oh, I didn't know that existed.
Yep. Big Johnny Megas. Have a look at this bloke. Doesn't he look like a surveyor you can trust? Like he's got that trustworthy face and like
on your Johnny.
I'm only scratching the bloody Silverstone surface. Give them a bloody ring and they'll do shit for you that you didn't even know they did or you needed. So bloody go Silverstone, go Australia and go Ireland as well. Go Kenny. Oh, bloody JD Evolution. Bloody they've made a bit of cash. I won't even mention the all-in sustaining costs. But bloody they've got, didn't they pump some gold and cash out of the cow? Bloody 90-odd thousand ounces out of cow for the quarter. I didn't realise how bloody big that was.
It's big.
Yeah, man.
It's bloody big.
It's big. I mean, they've sunk a bit of capital around the grounds as well. But yeah, good all round. Back up over $4 a share, up 3% today. So, you know, a big miss on the initial FY24 guidance, but that had been sort of flushed through the market pretty well, as you can see by the reaction today. So no real surprises there. And like you say, Matty, cash generation was strong. Again, as we kind of suspected with what gold had done and what copper had done over the past 3 odd months, you know, that Q4 on the financial year really outshone all other quarters in the financial year. And operationally, kind of like you're talking to there as well, Matty, up 14% quarter on quarter. So it was a pretty good quarter on that regard in gold production, and copper also a smidge higher. Looking at the full financial year, capital spend of a bit under $750 million. So that's chunky, you know, just gives you an indication of the scale of the business. About 200 of that is in sustaining capital, and the rest is obviously in growth capital. So that kind of exceeded their guidance of $720 million. Kind of question marks around where that goes in the future years, given Northparkes and whatnot still need a bit of capital to go into the ground. The very famous all-in sustaining cost was $1,275. Expectations are that ticks up a bit next year. Again, the numbers haven't come out yet. We're going to get guidance at their annual results in August, which is a bit of a funny one for Evos. They're kind of noted for giving the guidance around about now for the coming year. But looking at the balance sheet, 400 million in the kitty, 100 still got to go out the door for stamp duty. So you kind of got to factor that in. And total debt, again, not something that was disclosed, but just zooming out and looking at consensus, 1.9 billion. So they are a pretty levered business, although that's trending in the right direction. And it's only going to get better if, you know, metal prices stay where they are today. So all up a pretty good quarter. And like I sort of said, back over $4 a share. That's kind of reflective of the environment that we're now in, and the position and the confidence that people are kind of regaining around the business and their ability to pay down debt. Although there are kind of question marks about free cash flow generation in the coming years, given that, like I said, Northparkes and a couple other assets need a fair bit of money to be spent.
Yeah, do you find it weird reading through that quarterly? Because it's like, at a first glance, if you didn't know about the debt, it says they've just got this undrawn facility. They made this much cash. They had zero debt repayments, but as you said, they don't disclose what the total debt is. Is it because they're a big company and they don't have to? But it's like, if you've read it for the first time, it doesn't.
I don't love it.
It doesn't stick out that they've got.
I don't think they have the same obligation to put out that 5B cash flow statement like everyone else. But
yeah, but like,
they do break out every line item in there, and then they're consistent quarter to quarter. It's just a bit
But
of a
they don't-
frustrating one versus other companies. Yeah.
But could you see where that debt number was not in there? Yeah, total debt.
No, that was pulled out from broker consensus.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Like
So it's
you're
it's
spot
not
on. It wasn't
mentioned.
mentioned.
It's
Nah.
which is very weird.
They've got a revolver that's untapped as well of a bit over 500.
The thing I went
so-
straight to was did Red Lake make money? And the answer's like after major capital.
No,
it negative.
but it didn't lose. It didn't lose shit.
Negative
loads.
24 million. They had a weather event in the June quarter from memory, so it was probably on track to make money. We all just want to see Red Lake come good eventually. I hope they get there.
They flagged that one in June, and they said it was going to be a miss of 26,000 ounces, whatever they're missing on.
Yeah,
but
I'd said they improved fixed the problems with the materials handling system. So yeah, interesting with the capex, the growth capital as well. That was it E25 or E48, the PFS that's been completed at North Parks for a sub-level cave. So I think because I remember when they first bought it, they were tossing up a lot of them as whether they'd be block caves or sub-level caves. Obviously, sub-level caves are less quicker cash flow and less growth capital, I think, because everything is it'll be all sustaining capital, so that'll reduce the growth capital and bring the dirt forward a bit quicker if it's a sub-level cave.
Yeah, that one in particular, that's going to be a big sort of drain of capital that needs to be spent. Drain's probably not the right way to phrase it. Cash flows in future, but yeah, copper exposure really there. So that's one of the reasons they're getting marked favourably at the minute.
Just to wrap up, guys, I wanted to talk about what we're seeing in the overseas financing market. I think the activity there in the last few days has been like much more prevalent over there than it has been here, and I want to rattle off some of the big just financings or capital raising deals that I've seen in the North American market in the last few days. Just in case you haven't noticed, Montage Gold did a $170 million raise to advance its Koné project in Côte d'Ivoire, cornerstone by Zijin, with a 9.9% stake in the company, and the Lundin family going to 19.9%. Arsor, I don't know what a name, Arsor, made a strategic investment of $68 million in Mary Market Copper. They bought Tembo's $42 million stake, and the balance was new shares issued. We saw like Sol Gold, their main listing is on the London Exchange, but they do have a TSX listing, and they entered this syndicated gold stream with Franco and Azisco for $750 million US to potentially go towards Cascabel. Foran Mining, so they announced a strategic investment for $315 million with Fairfax and Agnico Eagle participating.
Not the media organisation, a different
Fairfax.
Okay.
Yeah, upsizing, and they also upsized their existing $150 million facility to $250 million, confirming FID at their Macavena project. G2 Goldfields today raised $42 million via placement for its Oko project in Guyana, cornerstone by Anglo Gold. Ashanti has gone to 15% after buying their first stake in January. So there's a big theme there in those deals that have all happened in the last 3 days. And the theme is strategic investments from the majors. The majors are voting with their capital right now. So these large gold or whatnot or copper companies, they're making more cash flow, and they're saying, where's the best place for me to allocate that right now? It's in these North American listed developers. They think that's
copper and gold too.
Yes, 100%.
Very consistent.
Totally. Anyway, it's a theme I'm paying attention to.
Yeah, I think that's really well sort of picked out, mate. And there's one more interesting thing I want to tie into that. Just noticed an article in the FT overnight saying investment banking profits around the world have picked up. So this is the sort of first pickup since things really dropped off a cliff at the beginning of 2022, sort of giving an indication that the capital markets more broadly are kind of opening up and more deals are being done at the end of the day. Kind of an interesting broader note.
Oh, mate, the restaurants would be loving it too. More deals, more dinners.
Dinners, lunches,
more corporate credit card activity. Bloody love it.
Beauty.
Right, good work, lads. Buddy. Oh, we'll be home day tomorrow. Chuck bloody, we've got a good interview coming up tomorrow. One of JD's specialties from over in Melbourne. And it's with 2 bloody good fund managers.
It is. Love to share that one, mate.
Yeah, very good. Right, thanks all the partners. Axis Mining Technology. Top of the show. Look at the hat, Trav. Fucking brilliant. Mineral Mining Services. VRIFY. GetWet Solutions. DSI Underground, Silverstone, CRE Insurance, WA Waterbores, K-Drill. How good's a Spark Chart and how good is New South Wales?
Hooteroo.
Hooteroo.
Go the Blues.
The information contained in this episode of Money of Mine is of general nature only and does not take into account the objectives, financial situation or needs of any particular person. Before making any investment decision, you should consult with your financial advisor and consider how appropriate the advice is to your objectives, financial situation and needs.